just make a start. I'd like to welcome you all to this, our first meeting of 2016. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind members that this meeting is being recorded and will be subsequently available for public listening. On the subject of recording, I would ask that you ensure that you use your microphones at all times when speaking and that you speak clearly into the microphone. Understanding it's sort of the wee ones in front, and they're actually quite good at picking up. Sederunt, apologies. Do we have any apologies?
Good morning, everyone. We have 7 members present today. I have no official apologies. Councillor Collins, Councillor Yen, Councillor Witts and Councillor Wiper are not present but may be along later in the meeting.
Councillor Wood.
Councillor Witts submits his apologies. Car issues.
What issues?
Car not working right.
Any declarations of interest?
No.
No hands up. We can move on. Minute of 15th of October 2015. It's here for approval. Can we take this as a correct record? Going good. Item 4. Scrutiny review, phase 2 commissioning. Feedback on final evidence. This report is presented here with the final 2 pieces of evidence for the commissioning review. Information on a new procurement strategy and the information presented at the Social Work Services seminar on commissioning, which all members of this committee were invited to, but unfortunately no one was able to attend on the day. We can see from both of these final submissions that the discussions we have been having and indeed our recommendations to be discussed in the next report are consistent with the work already ongoing and supports developments within individual services. In particular, we are all becoming very familiar with the commissioning cycle. It was initially presented to us by a Scottish Government officer who came in June last year. The third sector representatives showed us it when they came in August, and it was obviously part of the social work event in January this year. So just remember, you saw it here first. Gillian MacLeod is here to answer any queries members may have. Councillor Dykes.
Thank you, Chair. It was just on Appendix 1 and in particular on Item 1 on that appendix, because obviously it stipulates here that that the commissioning framework document is going to be required to be revisited and reviewed when we get a new person appointed, and I just wondered what the position was on that.
The post was vacated in the retirement of the former manager at Christmas. As part of the management restructures that members have agreed, the posts are being finalised for matching. I can advise that this post, there is no match to that, and we will be going out for external advert unless there's an internal candidate elsewhere in the council. So the procurement and commission manager will be a new appointment within the council to strengthen that team and take this work forward, Councillor. Yeah.
Can I just come back on that? It's just that, I mean, obviously this committee's done quite a lot of work round about this particular issue, and I wouldn't like to see it taken a backward step when we're appointing somebody else if it's got to be revisited and they may have a completely different take on it. So I just want to be clear that it's fine to have to be revised or revisited, but it would need to have an input from this committee as well.
I think to the extent that the person who's successful in securing that post will have a clear list of actions that they have to take forward, which relates to the ongoing work around procurement and indeed any recommendations that the full council accepts from this committee in relation to commissioning. So those are matters that the successful candidate will have as their to-do list as they arrive in post.
Okay, thanks.
And is it something like after a year of us making determinations to full council, they will get the chance to review to make sure everything's in place?
Yes, I can come back to this committee.
Right.
Yep.
Ian?
On that particular point, Chairman, I suppose, and it refers to the appendix, I'll refer to the appendix as well, and what was missing for me, and I'll come back to it probably most in the next paper, but Jill's picked up on one part, certainly. I think through the budget process, I was made aware of it at that time. That's probably when they picked up on that today. But was it full council, I think, last February time? So just a year past. Yourself, I think you highlighted it in your speech as well, Chairman, as far as through procurement, as part of the procurement, the information would gathered and the recommendations which were agreed to full council was to set up a committee, subcommittee stroke forum to look at procurement. And I brought it up again and again and again. I brought it up recently last Friday again at the review of schemes and delegations. I thought it was an appropriate place to bring it up because it hasn't been administered or adhered to, as far as I'm aware. So just in regards to that process, how is that pan out? And because it reflects on the rest of what we're doing here, and that's what I'll bring up probably most in the next one. It's no mention within that appendix how that decision should be implemented, because I do think there's a level of expertise needs to be gained within the membership of the council, and I've said that numerous times, probably getting sick of hearing it myself now, so other folk will be getting sick of hearing it, but just to emphasise on that particular point, that there's no mention in regards to that, and about that decision we made, and maybe pick up this, maybe your comments yourself, Chairman, in regards to that, or better picked up in the next committee report, in regards to how that will be implemented and taken forward. I did think review of schemes was the ideal place to do it.
I suppose we did make the recommendations and they should come back to see how they're actually being implemented. And has it been a full year? Was it February we did it last year? So there should be something coming back just to see how the council's performing, see if they've actually...
And that was just phase one of this overview report. So I think once you've got both bits in place, then you'll get a progress report and the overview.
Right. Right. Councillor Wood?
Thanks, Chair. Once again, in Appendix 1, maybe just the way I'm reading it, but point 5, where it goes on about it is also envisaged that there will be an important development that members will be involved in reviewing if services actually meet the envisaged outcomes. Surely it should be don't meet the actual outcomes. Otherwise, what's the difficulty? What's the problem? If they're meeting the outcome, why are we going to review it? So is that just a mistake? Or?
I think I think you can read it that way. I think, and I would anticipate that the officer who wrote this is not suggesting if, but I think it's the question members are asking themselves at that session: have services actually met those outcomes? It's an unfortunate turn of phrase, but your understanding and expectation is indeed mine.
If actually.
Well, that would be helpful.
And
That could be.
rework it a wee bit.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe something about if services actually do meet or something like that.
Can I,
Get that one checked just to make sure that's how it's meant to read.
can I also come up back on that particular point? And that is going through all the reviews. I'm having a wee bit of a problem trying to understand how we're going to facilitate the monitoring and evidencing thereafter. This all reads fine and well and dandy. And so often I've seen this within the council that we have great ideas, but when it actually comes to putting it into action, we as members don't really, it seems to get...
Lost in the ether.
Yeah.
As they say.
And it gets kind of caught up in the actual operational matters rather than it getting back to ourselves as to what we've planned is actually happening on the ground.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll come on to that later on in the report.
I think this harks back to your
It
point,
does,
Ian, of
that's what I'm driving at.
where are we actually going to monitor? I think the current sort of proposal is an overview from policy and resources, but whether that is sufficient or not, it might be something that we need to reconsider as time goes through the next year, if both are on together in time for the review.
But that worries me as well. You just said that as that goes through next year, surely we want to see action happening on what we're doing as quickly as possible.
Well, what I mean is, as the year goes through, we keep an eye on it, and if it's not working, then we get it done within the year. So that would be my view on it anyway.
Well, that'd be good if that was what happens.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, who do we? Jill and then you.
You covered it yourself, Chairman, for me.
I think Ian and Andrew have got very valid points, and I would have to say that This committee made a recommendation to full council regarding procurement, and that was agreed at full council and therefore should be embedded in council policies and procedures moving forward. That was what the agreement was at that time. Now, I understand from a commissioning point of view we're not there yet because full council, this hasn't been presented to full council and they haven't agreed. But we've had 12 months now for the procurement side of things to be looked at and to be embedded into the council, and it hasn't happened. And I do think that there is absolutely no point in scrutiny committee proposing things to full council and getting unanimous support from full council and then nothing happening. I mean, from a governance point of view, that's wrong. And from a committee point of view, I think we should be complaining about that. The committee chair should be saying, you have had 12 months to put something in place. We want to know what you're putting in place and when it's going to be in place. Okay. And I understand there's a review of the scheme of delegations, and that's maybe what's held things up, but how much longer is it going to be before we're in a position to see something happening? Because there's going to be an election for new councillors next year, and we haven't put in place what was agreed 12 months ago.
My understanding is the review of delegations with the proposals is coming to next full council.
Yeah. And have we an assurance that this will be on that?
No.
My understanding is that there's no specific subcommittee, but overview will be placed with the delegation to policy and resources.
But was the agreement at full council, was the agreement by this committee that was proposed to and unanimously agreed at full council for a subcommittee?
Chairman, can I just say a word on
It said a dedicated forum.
So therefore, this committee proposed to full council that a dedicated forum was put in place regarding procurement. It was a unanimous decision by the councillors, which are the strategic head of this council, not operational but strategic, and we have given a direction which was a unanimous full council direction, and it's not happening. I don't think that's right.
Perhaps I could come in, Chair. The subcommittee were asked to look at the proposal and how it would be brought into the scheme of delegations. They have reached a decision. Some members don't agree with that decision and their dissent has been recorded, and that will be presented to full council. It'll be for a matter for members to debate at that, but the position was to look at that in terms of how it would fit in with changes to the scheme of delegation. The subcommittee have taken quite some time to go through a number of matters. Well, there's agreement on many of them, there is disagreement on certain things, but there has been a decision taken in terms of recommendation, and that's for a matter for members. I would say that you don't have information in front of you today about the progress on the procurement review, and therefore we'll bring that back to a subsequent part of this meeting later this year, perhaps the next meeting, and then you can debate it and you will have information about the progress in that procurement review, but you certainly don't have it in front of you today.
I mean, this is the points I was probably got to come back to in the next one, and I didn't mean to embarrass you at all, Chairman, in regards to this. I maybe should have met you before the review of schemes of delegations last week and made my view clear at that point, but I just reverted back in my memory to what was said last year at full council. So it's not, I'm not wanting to get into the, because Jill's picking up on points that I've already picked up on very strongly, and I think it's very legitimate, but I think for the sake of probably moving on today, it's probably the right thing to pick it up, be it noted, but there is a clear question round about the governance procedure. The decision that was made at full council hasn't been fulfilled, but it did say actually forum stroke committee, and it's difficult, and that's why that's why I asked for my dissent to be recorded last week, because there's a lone voice when it came to that, and I've got a bugbear about this. I don't think the council, I referred to it in my budget as well, £181 million worth of procurement a year, and we achieved something like 0.3% when it comes to savings last year, or efficiencies, higher level performance, and that's where I think in order for the council to achieve the best it can for procurement or commissioning or delivering, and even went as far as to say about contracts management and enterprise and council, it needs to have the membership of the council enthusiastic and skilled to a high enough level to take this on board. So again, I'm repeating myself probably for about the 50th time, but I think, I don't know what I embarrass you, Chairman, when it comes to, in regards to it, I just think it's, we had a good discussion about it last Friday,
Right.
but I just pick up on particular points, certainly, when it comes to
My
tonight.
understanding was a member forum, and one example of that could be a subcommittee. Now, if that's, from my understanding, establish a dedicated member forum to give leadership and oversight of procurement, for example, creation of a subcommittee. So therefore, it was up to someone to decide what was the best way to deliver that. Now, that was delegated to the review of schemes. They've come forward with a proposal, that will go to full council, and at full council, you either adopt it or put forward another motion, I think.
So can we just be clear that the proposal from here, from this committee, was an example of what could be done, but it wasn't agreed that that was what was actually going to happen. It was up to the Scheme of Delegations Committee to determine.
Well, it was up to full council to determine how they were going to fulfil that, and they placed it to the scheme of delegation.
Okay, fine.
I would disagree with that, but that's for sure. I'm not wanting to get into semantics today. That's not my reading of the minute.
Right then, with that, if we go back to the feedback and final evidence, consider further evidence and information provided as detailed in appendices 1 and 2. We'll check those points that have been highlighted. Are we happy that this evidence is added to the scrutiny review phase 2 commissioning? Yeah. Right. So that's dealt with item 4. Move on to item 5. Scrutiny and Performance Committee, draft analysis and findings and emerging recommendations in phase 2 commissioning and review. This is our main item for today. This sees the end of phase 2 of procurement and commissioning scrutiny review, and I am grateful to members for their involvement to see this through. We have had a good range of evidence sessions and importantly spoken to people out with our council so that we are presenting here as a rounded picture. Possibly the best way to take this forward is if we could look at the evidence and analysis on pages 25 to 32. Are there any comments or additions or amendments to that material that we think should be added? Ian?
Press my button here, but we don't have to do it. No, just some points picking up on. I've got page 23 in mine where I'm looking at first, Chairman. It says point 5 and objective 2, agree that elected members receive the appropriate training and updates in their role in commission as part of the council induction programme. I'm thinking of procurement here as well, contracts management commission and delivering as we go forward. I don't think it should, I mean certainly it should be one part of it, but it shouldn't be the start and end of it. Because you know, especially new councillors, there probably will be a few new councillors next time as well. That's at the beginning of your term of office. And the most of that's lost in the first 6 months as new councillors are trying to pick up. So I think that should be ongoing. I think it's maybe just at the start certainly doesn't reflect for me when it comes to the training. I think
what I was planning on doing is if we do the objectives and the evidence and analysis,
right,
and then go back to 23 and 24, because that's saying what our recommendations are. So if everything in 25 to 32 is in line with what we've discussed, what we've actually taken forward, what we've actually found out, if members are happy with that, then we'll go back to the recommendations and we'll work our way through that.
That's fine. Yep.
Happy with that as well.
So you've got your pages wrong, sorry, Chairman.
No, it's just, I thought we'd do it that way and then we can pick up the recommendations at the end. Do we want to do it page at a time? Yeah. Any points on page 25, which is objective 1, understanding and clarifying of the definition of commissioning, etc. Anything on the evidence? Any members got any points on the analysis? Move on to objective 2, establishing what capacity building is required. within the evidence? And any points within the analysis?
I mean, I just put a note in the analysis, but the only thing I picked up in the whole lot, Chairman, for myself was, I just thought that was well picked up. I think it comes back to the point where it shows, it says in there that it's sporadic, and it's too wide. It's too wide for the sake of having that expertise. That's how I certainly picked up. There is a requirement for information and capacity building, particularly in the horizon scanning for the future. Elected members need to be able to future-proof strategic decisions and support provided to build an expertise in shaping options and decisions. The fact that a range of committees, which is what we've emphasised previously, have commissioner responsibilities mean that there is a wide group of members involved, but there is no specialism or specific focus to support members in their roles, and I think that was well picked up, and I agree with that entirely.
Any other points in that one? Objective 3. What capacity building is required to enable commissioning with outside bodies. And the evidence. And there's the analysis there. Points that we feel missed or could be added or emphasised. No. Objective 4. Considering current capacity of the local, private, independent and third sector to provide commissioned services. We had some evidence there. I think we were still waiting on some evidence for what could be provided through commissioning. But
How many times?
there's still, I think there's still, what was the term you said, Ian, earlier? Horizon.
Aye, it was
Looking at that.
We did ask for further information. We were advised that they were going to be sent, third sector was going to be sending us further information.
It has been chased
Not
up.
had any.
I have chased them numerous times, and to date I still have had no information.
Fine.
Horizon scanning or navel gazing at it. Objective 5. Should remember that we are being recorded as well.
You hear from
Review the impact of our health and social care arrangements and long-term social planning. I think there's a feeling in that one it might be too early because of the fact that it's not up and running yet. It's something we need to keep an eye on for the future.
April is.
Yeah, that's the main start of it. So
This Jim, I think it is actually an authority now, but it's the 1st April it can actually make decisions and enforce them.
yeah,
So it is actually, I think as of October time last year, it is officially an authority. So
yeah,
you're right, but I think time is probably right now
yeah.
to be scrutinising.
Keep an eye on it. Yep. Objective 6. What services could be commissioned? And that's the one that we're still waiting on some evidence and don't know if it's going to be forthcoming or not.
I think it's important that we record that that third sector were going to bring back to us some information, and that we have actually asked them on numerous occasions, and there's still not been forthcoming, because it is important, because when they gave their evidence, they were quite harsh,
Yeah.
I would have said, on the way that the council treated them, and they were very much they very much put forward that they could be doing things better and that they had better ideas. And we did ask them to bring those ideas forward to the table, and I think it's important that we record that we, so far, after months, we've still received nothing from them, and they have been chased on numerous occasions and we still haven't got anything.
Yeah.
Because I do actually feel that that's very important here, because they were not the easiest people to take evidence from, and they were very critical of their experiences. And we did ask for further evidence from them, and it's not been forthcoming, and I think that's important.
Because I think was it the last workshop we asked for another
Yeah, it was.
letter to
absolutely
go,
was.
so whether it's had any effect on them or not yet, I take it the answer would be no, but we can.
Chair, can I perhaps add, if we include that information, but I think it wasn't just that you requested it, it was offered to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think that's
Well,
important.
yes.
They offered it and we asked them to forward it on to us. and that for part of this review, and it's just not happened. And I think that's important that we record that.
I've got Richard and then Andrew.
Just to remind you that they aren't the third sector, they're a group that purportedly is supposed to represent the third sector, and that's and the main, and it's up to us, well, we've all of our own opinions of whether they're doing a good job of representing the third sector or not.
I'm not suggesting that they're not doing a good job of representing the third sector. What I'm saying is that when they came to give evidence, they offered to us further information and we asked them to provide that, and they haven't done it, and they've been chased on numerous occasions. Representing the third sector, they came here to represent the third sector.
Right. Andrew?
That's an interesting point. That this whole review of commissioning is reliant upon the cooperation and work in partnership with the various other organisations. And unless we get that cooperation, how do you take it forward? We have to have uniformity within commissioning. If we don't, then we're all working at different levels. We're back to square one. How are we going to put penalties in place that we don't put the support out there for them unless they come, start to work with us? Or how are we going to take this and put it into a system that we can implement and know that we're going to get a satisfactory outcome?
I think some of the recommendations when we go back to them is to try and make sure there is consistency in what we think commissioning is, because I think there is that sort of wide range currently, and we need to build up that sort of expertise, etc., whereby we can deliver and the other people realise what needs to happen. Because I think when we actually took some of the evidence, they had a different view of what commissioning was than what the official definition is. We come and tell you what you need to deliver, because we deliver it this way, that's the best way to do it, rather than a sort of how do we make sure the outcomes that are achieved for the people at the end of it. It's maybe pick that up in the recommendations, it goes to right. I don't think it'll be an easy question to answer.
Don't think so either.
Objective 7, rigor and structured deciding between in-house or outsourcing. Evidence. And then we have the analysis there. If anyone feels need to add anything in there. No? And objective 8, reviewing the content of our new procurement strategy as it relates to commissioning. The evidence that was received. And I think with regard to the first point, that's sort of been updated at the last workshop. We had the note on the first.
Yeah. I'll update it before it goes to the full council.
Tendering there should not be seen as a negative process, although a lot of people felt it was a negative process. Maybe that was because they weren't successful. Right, if there's nothing that we want to add or question about that, so any amendments, if we move back to page...
On that point you said about tendering process, people felt it was negative, and that might have been because they hadn't been successful in getting the work.
Yep.
I'm not sure that that's a fair and accurate statement, to be honest. I do think that there are issues surrounding the tendering process and within different departments in the council, and I'm hoping that that will be addressed under the contract management system that was brought into the full council. It was passed at policy and resources the other day, and I actually do think that that will help with the training of staff, etc., as to how to carry out a tendering process and what they actually need to do, because there is a huge need for staff training there. So I think on that particular statement, I think we do need to retrain our staff, or even give staff training for the very first time on that particular issue. And hopefully after that, that should make a difference.
I think a lot of the evidence was that it's a lot of work, and if you don't get the job at the end of it, it's been a lot of wasted effort. That was the sort of feeling. I can remember one, it went from 5 pages up to, was it 150 odd pages, the last one that the person had tendered for, and that was their concern. You know, you would think that they would actually get something out of that, even if it's going forward for other tenders whereby they've done the process before, and hopefully they're getting feedback
I
to
think
see where the issues may arise and where they could improve their tenders to meet the challenges.
well, they should be, but that's part of the problem, isn't it? That's why our staff are needing to be retrained, and I think we've picked up on that in the huge document that was put forward at Policy and Resources. So hopefully then our outside providers will be given a better opportunity to understand where they may have gone wrong in the tendering process.
I think a bit of that was taken in the procurement side of it as well,
Correct.
whereby we were saying we should actually be working with our providers
Correct.
to help them
Well, that would be
develop their
that would be
tendering
normal
skills.
practice.
Andrew?
Just to elaborate on that as well, that Councillor Dykes has raised, at audit and risk, it was brought up about how tendering, our council tendering process is not necessarily adhering to our policy, and that we have certain individuals within the council that they don't even go through that policy of tendering, and they just go ahead and purchase wherever they feel that they're required to do so. So, as you rightly say, it's not all about negativity, it's about we're not actually adhering to our own policies.
I think that was highlighted. Was it the
Yeah.
audit committee?
It
where
was
that-
highlighted
That should
at audit.
reflect-
Mhm.
We need to reflect that in the paper.
So, you know, maybe we want to suggest that further training is going to be taking place.
And we would pick that up in the recommendations as we go through them. If members are ready now, we could go back to the recommendations on page 23 and 24. As we worked through these at the workshop, these were the sort of recommendations that came out for the different objectives through here. So if there's anything in here that I think needs to be beefed up a bit, we can do that just now. If there's something you think's missed out, we can put that in as well. So if we start on page 23 with objective 1. Anything on that one? Ian, is it, or for a later one?
It was 2, objective 2 for me.
Anyone in 1?
Yeah.
2, Ian?
Just a point, just the emphasis, it says here at point 5, agree that elected members receive the appropriate training and updates on their role in commissioning as part of the council's induction programme. Induction and ongoing, maybe I think that's one stage. I think it maybe does pick on it later on, I'll just read through it again as we go through, but I mean I think that's, because some training we got for this term, that was it. It was at the induction, and we've never done any recaps, revisits, anything, and training is something that essentially, if you're serious about doing a good job anyway, so it needs topped up on a regular basis. So I'll just pick up on that point. Induction is the starting point, I think, it's not the end point.
And you could just stop it sort of after the word commissioning, about ensuring members receive appropriate training and updates on their role in commissioning.
I do think it's quite important that it is in at their induction process, though. I mean, I think normally that would be where new councillors would receive, I take Ian's point, lots of training on different things, but I do think it's important that it's actually in the induction programme, because if it's not, then how would you know that?
Yeah.
I suppose I would agree with that, Chairman, but I agree also, I mean, I think it's got to be, induction, there's got to be, going back to what I said earlier, there's got to be an expertise of members on this. There's only got to be certain ones interested in. For instance, I've tried for 3 years to get a particular training, and it's never been forthcoming. It's like bang your head against a brick wall, and that's why I said this, just to try and get a wee bit of training. So this is just at the induction, absolutely right, but Jill's right, it should be, maybe she's using different words, but I mean, some councils will look at this and think, it's the last thing in the world I want to be involved in. Others will grab this bit with both arms. They will. They'll love it, thinking it's great. Let's get involved and see that they make a difference. So I think you're bringing up a valid point as well, Jill, in regards to that. But it should be ongoing. But induction, that's when there'll be some folk who get elected at the next council think that's where I want to be. We're making them aware of it, and then they can actually get involved at that point.
Because regulations do change now and again, so it would be worthwhile. Richard?
Yeah, I just
reword.
change the wording, I think. Agree that elected members receive an induction, appropriate training and updates on the role in commissioning. Something like that would do.
Andrew?
Point 7, and that is recognising the need for change in attitude. Well, that's fine to recognise it, but we haven't actually put down there how we're going to change that attitude or culture or whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure how you want to word that, but I think it needs to be emphasised and highlighted that, you know, how we intend to do it, because it's a recommendation rather than just a statement.
Lama?
It's a matter for members to consider the action, but I would suggest that maybe one way to do is to add to that sentence, through this training, reinforce that through this training and the expectations. But that's entirely a matter for you to consider.
Yeah, I think through further training.
Sorry?
I think we should be saying through further training.
Yeah.
Should it be compulsory?
Well, not just training, but there has to be evaluation after training. One thing to train someone, but has it gone in one ear or the other?
Well, I think through further compulsory training and evaluation.
Yeah, that would be all right, right?
Is it compulsory training for staff or members?
Well, in here, I would suggest it's for staff.
Dealing with the elected members on at 5 there.
Yeah, I mean, from this particular one, I think it's for staff.
Yes.
Are we happy with those additions? Move on to objective 3. Establishment of capacity building is required to enable commissioning with outside bodies.
Pick up on that, Chairman, is under 9. It refers to recommendation number 6, and we've changed that, so we can take that would reflect the changes made in there. That's all.
Where are you, Ian? Sorry.
Is it objective 3, part 9? It refers to the previous recommendation that we've changed, so just that should be reflected, obviously.
Yeah, I agree.
Did we change 6? I think changed 5. We
Oh,
changed
5,
7.
sorry, so it is, no, you're right, sorry, I picked
5 and
that wrong.
7. 5 and 7 we changed.
Sorry, that's right. Got a pen through that.
What does it mean by full buy-in? I mean, how do you decide whether that's happened with independent or private sectors?
Change it to full understanding.
I think it should be, but but it could just be a sort of nod to the.
But you would do that, would you not do that through the review of your suppliers' commissioning service?
I just feel that's one of the ones that is saying something, but we're not. Just makes us feel good. But actually, if it doesn't happen, it's not going to work. And you might get some reluctant people in various sectors that don't think they have to engage.
But would that be the case that if they're not engaging, then they're not taking part? Therefore, the ones who are taking part, you've got full buy-in from them.
You could look at it in a scoring manner as well. You know, it could be part of your whole sort of commissioning, tendering process, which is what you should be doing when you actually score your suppliers or your service providers. And that, so you would be able to put a score against buy-in. They would have to evidence the buy-in.
As a quality measure rather than a quantity one.
We should somehow.
Lorna?
I mean, I think we had an earlier discussion around engagement with third sector and the contribution, I think, to the extent of measuring progress on these actions and recommendations if they're taken by full council. There is, to an extent, ensure there's the opportunity for public, third sector, private sector to cooperate and work with us and as part of any commissioning process as well. People have the choice not to engage with that. I think being able to make sure that we're giving them all the opportunities and we're working as closely as we possibly can. But I think to be able to measure that would be on the basis that to what extent have people decided that that's not what they wish to do or have that relationship with us. So I think there's a need to be able to put something that the council can deliver rather than something that's in other people's hands.
Chairman, would that be built into our strategy then? I would have thought it would have been an important point that actually Patsy's brought up, but it's, you'd think that would be incorporated in there, and whether there's a performance indicator against that or not, I'm not just so sure, because it is a difficult thing. An example earlier with third sector, and they were probably more than willing, but they've just, like everybody else, they've got other things that they've got to prioritise, haven't they? So, I think it is important what Patsy's brought up. We need to be reassured that it is we're getting full buy-in. But how do we actually monitor that and make sure that's happening?
Find some way to measure it. Andrew?
I was thinking it was the third.
It's coming back to that point 9, and we're talking about engage with the key partners and give access to training as development and recommendation number 6. Now I have to confess, I kind of picked up the same as yourself there, Ian. First of all, who's going to pick up the cost of that training if we're going to be offering it? And are we going to be working on a similar sort of evaluation as we're going to be doing with our internal personnel?
He's going to do all this.
I personally don't agree that we should be giving training
I don't agree
to
either.
our partners.
Well, I do if we can charge them.
It's not up to us to train, it is up to us to keep them on board and to work with them.
Yep.
But it's not up to us I don't think it's up to the council to train them.
But how does that play with home care, so to speak? You've got the care inspector overarching, we've got to be qualified to a certain level. Again, that's commission procure, whichever way you want to describe it. The commission document sitting over the top of that, strategically. And that's where I kind of felt that lay, so we will supply training if required, I would have thought, as a council, but we'll train our own staff as well as the organisations that are fulfilling our statutory duties in real terms.
But number 6 is about training our own staff. Because it says that ensures staff are kept up to date with new ways of working and continue to develop their expertise in commissioning. So that is our own staff. But number 9 is specifically talking about other people's staff.
Yes, I know.
Not council staff.
It is
Yes.
giving access. It doesn't say we were providing, it is giving access, which means if they want to access it, they have to come in and get it. It's not something that we would deliver to them.
It's not necessarily free either, is it?
No.
Well, I think we need to be clear on that.
Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, it doesn't actually say
No,
that.
it doesn't say that.
So,
I think giving access to training is part of getting the full buy-in. I think that's a part of the process, and it might save staff time in the long run, chasing up tenders, etc. If they're not going to. Obviously, there'll be a degree of sort of leading them through the process, which is necessary. But the question is whether we charge for the formal training part of it. But at the moment, we're saying we're giving them access.
I think it's something that has to be, sorry, Joe, I think it's something that has to be considered, because I think we're going to struggle to justify paying without charging them because of the climate we're sitting in at the moment.
I mean, if I could perhaps help in terms of item 6, the idea is that the commissioners will develop a training programme. Some of that could perhaps be an online course that would be free of charge. Some of it might be perhaps a discussion. I think one of the things that came through your evidence session with the third sector was about a lack of there wasn't a shared understanding about what we meant by commissioning and the process. So the training might even be just a discussion to make sure that everybody is understanding the process in the same way or it could be about giving them access to a free online course. So I think it would perhaps be, we could maybe amend recommendation 9 with, you know, appropriate cost sharing if required or something like that, if that would help address your point, because it might not cost, the training might not cost something.
Andrew?
I don't fully agree with what you're saying there, Liz. This is a government organisation, third sector. It gets over 300,000 from the Scottish Government. And we shouldn't be supplying a free training. In fact, they will be subject to a commissioning programme themselves, or an understanding of commissioning and training themselves. And I would have thought that it should be in line with the very commissioning programme that we're trying to put into place here. So I think it's more about making them accountable for their own training, making sure that it is in line with ours, because ours should also be in line with government. Is that correct?
Not all your partners will be members of third sector Dumfries and Galloway, so I take your point about that organisation, but you have partners who are not involved in third sector Dumfries and Galloway.
But they're not supposed to be affiliated to the DG, the third sector first.
Not all, it's a membership.
It might be a private sector partner that you're actually helping
They're not.
So it's not the private sector.
to understand.
I think third sector DG actually provide training.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've been on a course myself.
For its members.
Is it?
You have.
Yeah.
Richard?
I've had training of them.
Yeah, I think you've got to divorce the third sector
PNG.
organisation who gets the funding from government and all the third sector organisations which might want to take part in commissioning, take commissions from us. I think because they don't get funded from the government, they're independent and they may be members or may not be members of this third sector DG. So I think you've got to divorce that.
But DG third sector is there to support and assist the third sector, no matter whether if they're members or not of their organisation.
Key partners, isn't it?
And anyway, well, we don't want to labour on it too long, but I still think it's wrong that we're not getting the proper service from third sector. DG, you know, the Dumfries and Galloway third sector first.
Maybe that lies in the fact that that's why we need to do this commissioning project, to make sure that we commission what we want and they
have to
deliver
train
what
them
we
to
commission.
know what we want.
Yeah.
DGMA.
Lorna?
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I think the discussion at the workshop was around making sure there was a consistent understanding and a consistent knowledge so that people could participate in it. Well, we've talked about third sector here. Ian's mentioned care providers who are not third sector. We commission from lots of organisations and commission with them. I think the issue here is not training per se. I think the discussion, and it's maybe our pick up of the language, was about making sure that we engage with key partners to ensure a common understanding and share any sort of materials, etc., to make sure that that's the case. So, and work with them around their own development. So I think we can soften this and make it more clear, because I think the issue of training would be something specific for a particular area commission, and it would be as part of the engagement with members on that commission, but not to put a kind of general statement out around provision of training for free or otherwise. I think wasn't where the discussion at the workshop had been. It was much more about making sure the consistency, the engagement, and a kind of a good line of working, notwithstanding the type of commission or which agencies we were dealing with as part of that commissioning framework. So I think we need to review the words. It certainly wasn't really focused on training, and was my recollection.
I think it was noticeable that some understandings of commissioning were do away with procurement and just go straight to speak to us and we'll deliver the service for you. And that wasn't my understanding of commissioning. Commissioning is setting the strategy, and then you have some procurement process below that to deliver it. And it's how to make sure that the private, third, independent, other public sectors work on the same basis, rather than commissioning something different. So I think that was the sort of main issue that came out of that one. John?
If you look back at Objective 3, it says any improved approach to enable a full commissioning model needs to be properly resourced by investing in capacity building and professional support for officers, elected members and providers. Now that has a cost implication. because it says, and providers. So what we're saying is, to enable a full commissioning model, we need to invest in capacity building and professional support for officers, elected members and providers. Well, that is costing us. You know, if we, as a council, so, and then it says, this is around understand what we mean by commissioning, having the right skills to plan, think strategically long term and how to engage effectively. But it does say, and professional support for providers. So we just need to be careful, I think, and clear that we're not offering to providers out there professional services at our cost, because in these two items it would suggest to me that we are. If I was a provider and I did that and I went, oh, look, they're going to give me professional support.
Exactly.
So I need to do this and I need professional support to do it, and so thanks very much, here's my bill. We just need to be careful from the wording point of view.
I think, Chair, in terms of professional support, we already provide a commission. We've got commissioners in social work, for instance, who work with home care providers, so that they're talking to them. They're not providing training, support and tuition and commissioning for their interaction with them. So that professional support, I suppose, is in the development of their market. It's not free, gratis. This is part of delivery of our commissions and procurement around that. So I think that's why the word training is kind of really causes the confusion there.
Just put support or something.
If we can change that recommendation with wording, send it out to members just to.
Yeah, if we get a form of words, and then we could maybe just agree it. We've got a form of words. It's still consistent.
Objective 4. The recommendation there to work in partnership from the outset.
Yeah.
Quite happy with that one. Objective 5. What we decided there was that our definition should be the one that the IJB use, and we're sort of commending that to them.
Did we get a view from NHS in regards to that at all as part of the, I don't remember if we did or not. Did we speak
Your
to them?
evidence session was from a Scottish Government official who's
right.
leading the kind of health and social care model,
They
so
will go
I
in
think
and
you
support
could
after
take
that,
it that you've had that expertise from NHS.
They were going to pass on, I think, our thoughts at that time, because they were
That's
going to
right,
meet with
with
NHS
these
after
next
that. That's
meeting.
right. No, that's right. Tell them that now.
I think the recommendations are good
I
recommendations.
do as well. Yeah, right. I think we've probably got a better process, is what potentially is what the NHS has got. That's my personal feeling, and therefore what's being viewed here.
Well, it was noted that there wasn't any sort of examples of good practice, or he wasn't willing to sort of put forward, well, actually this works well here or this works well there. He did say there was some good work down south, but that was a different commissioning system than what we apply. So happy with 11. Objective 6, elected members are considering what services could be commissioned externally, and then we have the recommendation.
Chair, I would like somebody to give me an example of something that we're doing now and how they see that reflected in that statement for the future. An example of where we are now and how it will change with what's in Objective 6. Please.
I can provide a couple of examples. One might be around how we provide home care. That's a reasonable one. Actually, that's happening just now. The workshop that you were invited to was actually part of that work with members to go through what the future of home care might look like, working with the providers. So that would be one example of it. I think there's an example which was raised at the workshop by a number of members, which was around commissioning for certain aspects of inclusion and equality with third sector bodies, particularly, and looking at what the requirement from that is, what the council's seeking to achieve from that, what is required to help support, and indeed then working through that information on what we've done previously, what other places do, and working our way through that as part of a commissioning model before we go out to procure for that, or indeed to grant.
Okay, I think that's really helpful, Chair. But are we saying here that if we're going to do anything else differently, we're going to hold a workshop or a seminar for members so that they have an earlier engagement? Or is that what we're saying, or earlier and better information for areas of future service provision? So would we do that if we were thinking about, I don't know, changing another way of working? Say providing leisure facilities or...
I think probably I'll go back to the home care. There's been reports at social work committee, so the seminar was actually
right, okay.
part of a formal decision making, but it was to give members more information, a chance to ask more detailed questions. So it's part of a continuum. It's not out with committee, so it wouldn't be through seminars that I would recognise.
So it would be through committee then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I suppose another one would be the sort of delivery of KG5, where Queen of the South have taken that over, and we're looking to widen that out. There's other ones, the Keswick Centre possibly being taken over. So those are ways of delivering a service. Our strategy is that we want leisure services across the region. Who actually delivers it is the procurement process. But if we've got the strategy of we want so many hours of service in certain areas, then we can deliver it that way.
So could we write into the 12 that it would be through committee in some shape or form? Because I think that would be helpful, rather than it being something out with committee, if you see what I mean.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Andrew?
Does that mean then a new example might be DG1 and the refurbishment of that? Would we be having a workshop on DG1, or is that,
Go through committee.
because that would be a commissioning, wouldn't it? No
I'm
commissioning.
very careful what I say here, but I understand that the works in DG1 will be subject to reporting at committee. That was my understanding.
CCS.
So it was coming to CCS.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
Seminar.
So that's why if we put, that's why we need to put through committee in there in some shape or form.
Right, okay.
Very well put.
Yeah.
I still have a whinge about the previous point where I think a standalone committee or forum would actually pick up on that same thing, and it does actually say the earlier involvement of elected members, and I take on board. I've been the few years that turn up to social work when it comes to seminars, but there's no well attended, to say the least. Sometimes you wouldn't be quorum, and I think that goes across for most of the commissions and procurement for that matter. Most members find it boring, and I don't blame them for that, but some folk have a really keen interest because they see well the improvements could be made, and I think it's another example where a standalone committee that recognised procurement, commission and delivery would be a better way of delivering that actual recommendation there. Another whinge, Chairman.
So we can pick up that point.
Yeah, I just think if we add in through committees in there, that covers the whole situation.
Just on Ian's point, I think he's absolutely right. That there's not a great take-up on these things, and if we did have a dedicated, whatever you want to call it, committee, forum, I don't know, then that would be part of that group of councillors' job, if you like, to follow it up with seminars and things that are going on. Whereas at the moment it's just totally ad hoc. And I don't know whether that gives a bit more strength to your argument, Ian. That
Well, I think we picked it up in the scrutiny visits as well when we went. I think it's Renfrewshire in particular, or somewhere in about there anyways, but they had that standalone committee, and that's where that reference came from. That whole, it just lifted their level of procurement from there to there. It just had that political focus, buy-in, members were involved, and it just improved the performance in that direction. And that's probably why I focus on it as much, because I was there at that visit and it was hammered home to us at the time just how important it was. to get that level of recognition.
Yes, I think the board agree that that is a good way forward, and it seems to be getting lost in translation, if you like.
I go back to the point when I made the budget thing. If put it into context, if we've got 100% of the budget, 181 million, what we're saying, if listen, you had £100 last year, you're going to have to work within your budget for £99 this year. And the answer was, no, I'm sorry, I need £99.70 to make it work. And I found that unacceptable. This would, as far as I'm concerned, a single committee would resolve that problem.
Right. I've got that amended in there. Pick those points up. Objective 7, considering the need for guidelines to allow rigour and structure when deciding between in-house or outsourcing. Happy with the recommendation there?
Well, it's the same as the one above. It's elected members need to receive the right information, absolutely. But which elected members? You know, it can't be everyone because they're not interested. And it comes back to the same thing. I think the ones that are interested in the...
But then again, I suppose, can you deliver in a subcommittee the Commission for Home Care, which I want to get the best deal I can? Does that actually then reflect the commissioning process through social work, where I want to get the best service I can? Rather than, one might be concentrating more on financial figures, one might be concentrating more on service delivery. Well, actually, if you do it a cheap way, you can be in and out in 10 minutes, that covers what you want, and it's £10, whereas what we want. And how can both committees actually, if you don't, if you have one committee that does that, and it's looking at pounds, shillings and pence, and another one's looking at
But it's
Chair,
not, that's the point.
Chair, procurement and commission is all about best value,
Yes.
best service. It's not about
One or other.
pounds, shilling and
No.
pence.
And that's, I think you've just given the example of why we're in a muddle, because we've got it coming up from defence, and you need a defined subcommittee, and the message is in the word sub. It's not a committee that decides; it's a subcommittee that will advise and direct.
So if the subcommittee decides that this is the model we want to deliver and it costs more, then is that, because what we've got from the budget indication is here from Ian, that actually we can cut 10% out of our commissioning because if we do it properly. Well, actually, if we want a service that delivers whistles and bells, it's actually going to be 10% more.
Are you talking about best value?
1% I was talking about,
I know, but I'm saying if you go into the future and look for more.
Can I just tell you, if you're looking at commissioning and procurement, the bottom line is that you determine what it is that the end user requires.
Absolutely.
So, say it's just an ordinary desk and you need to purchase a desk. What do you need? You need your desk at a certain width, certain height, and it's to fit in a certain space. That's what you go out to procure.
Yes.
Okay, you don't go out to procure a teak desk with nice sort of fancy legs and what have you. So the problem with what you've described is, when you said bells and whistles, what you've described is that where your contract manager is key, because your contract manager has to be in it right at the beginning, and the person who's requiring something specifies what it is they require. That's all they do. They have nothing else to do with it after that. They request
But
what they
commissioning
specify.
isn't about that table will do.
No, so I'm giving it,
Will that table do in 10 years' time?
but what we're talking about is commissioning is more about service delivery rather than an item.
Yeah.
So I'm giving you an example of both, but you're talking about bells and whistles, and what I'm saying is you need to know what the end users, what is it that's required for that end user, and that's what we procure, or that's what we commission. That it's not about bells and whistles and what have you.
Commissioning is about, well, when I say bells and whistles, I mean someone might need home care whereby they need someone in 3 times a day, right? Now, the commission, you need to provide that service for that person for 3 times a day, and that's what that person needs. Procurement is when you go to the provider and say, how much will it cost to provide that?
No, that's absolutely not what procurement is. That's
Procurement is getting the deal.
No, I'll see this. No, I raised my case. Procurement's not about.
Commissioning is about setting the strategy of what you want to do and how you want to deliver it and what the outcomes are. Procurement is about buying that service.
I suppose you're right in one sense, Ivor, but I suppose there's another part to that where you could say that, using home care as an example, we have to apply the living wage or ask for that. So therefore, you're not necessarily getting the lowest common, you're not aiming for the lowest common denominator. And it goes back to the commission and the service, it's shaped up in that way. Plus you've got that financial framework to work with. But it's then about going out to the market, or is it better delivered in-house and so on and so forth. But I think we've still got a way to go with that, and it's about having that level of expertise. I will support MD who says anything about if we had a focus on that for members as well. It's the members that I'm banging on about more than anything. I think the staff have got a way to go, and they recognise that previously and within reports. But we're gearing up for it. That decision's been made and on we go. But the members still have a way to go, and I don't think the members are being facilitated, and that's what I think we need to. And there's opportunities there now. And as a scrutiny committee, if that's a weakness, it's something we should recognise, Ivor. We should.
So impasse.
So what did you get from that? What did you write down?
We've got a definition of commissioning here, but not definition of procurement. So we're no commissioning in this.
So is it, you're on recommendation 13, is that right? That what we're trying to work through is whether or not you feel the need to add something explicit about the forum and where members.
I think we need to put it in. I think we need to get it
I'd love to
into.
see that.
I would agree with Ian on that. We need to get it in. I don't know that forum is the best word.
Well,
if I'm being
Forum
perfectly
committee.
honest, but
Yep.
And make them equal part.
Forum could be a committee, but
I don't think.
I thought it'd just be me banging my head against the wall today.
But if you look at objective 7, is you need to have the right information to see whether it should be in-house or out-house. Surely that information is gleaned from procurement,
Can I,
whereby are you going to deliver something this way, or you can get it the exact same service on an outsourced one rather than an insourced one for similar or better price, or you might get a better service by going out the house or in-house. Now that's information a member would need. Whether it's got whistles and bells or whatever makes no difference. That is what we are here to make sure we get best value. Now if you've got 2 services that are both best value, both delivering the same thing, one's cheaper than the other, best value is a cheaper price. But then again, they can't deliver it because they go bust in a year. So was it best value? Jill?
I think for objective 7, we need to remember that we are strategic, so elected members are strategic, and the service delivery is operational. And I think what we're getting here is a little bit of muddied water between strategic and operational. So for councillors to give direction, because they're strategic, but operational is down to the chief exec and his team. And I think we're just getting a little bit muddled.
Is it something in 13 about getting the right information in the right forum?
So
Forum could be a committee, it could be a forum, could be what, but I mean, it's how do you tie that down,
Right,
Liz, if
I
that's
mean,
the
it could be
case?
your service committee, or it could be, through the contract work, it would just, so would it be the right information in the right forum?
because
Is
it's
that what you're
not,
trying to get
because
to?
it's not
that-
up to councillors in some
Uh-huh.
cases. We've made a strategic decision, and it's up to the operational arm of the council to do what councillors have determined should be done, because councillors have made a strategic decision and given direction. And then it's up to the operational arm to do that. That's the difference. That's how it works, or how it should work.
I'm just picking up, it's getting the right
So
information.
that
like
would
that,
say
right
the
time.
operational part is delivering the service, so that's the procurement side. So that should not be near councillors, is what you're saying.
I'm saying that councillors have, if you looked at a board rather than as a council, I'm saying that the board, it's the same thing. A board is the same as a group of councillors. They give strategic direction. That's what they do. And then operationally, that's what's put in place because you've advised that that's what you want. That's how it works. It's not up to the councillors to determine the procurement, who we're purchasing from in certain cases. We get reports to us and then we can make a decision on that, but we don't do the work before we see the report. So I think it is right that it's committee decision.
So if we're going with commissioning and objective 7, by determining whether it's going in-house or outsourcing, surely that is us interfering at an operational level rather than a strategic level. We should be saying Jeannie needs to have an outcome which is that she can stay at home longer. Now, how can you then say, well, actually, that's delivered better by in-house services at a strategic level? That is a operational level. So therefore, on your thing, that shouldn't come anywhere near us, so we should not see that information.
As a commission, I would see it, would we not? Either.
Commission's a strategy,
Yep.
which is G needs to stay at home longer.
Yep.
And I'll just pick on Liz. Liz, you go and deliver that. Now Liz goes out through procurement and comes back and says, well, to do that, I deliver it this way. Now we should never see what decisions Liz took to get that to that post, if that's strategy and operational.
But we need to understand that our constituents, residents, the service user, however you want to describe them, are gaining what we have agreed through the commission and whatever information, because this is about elected members getting information at the right time, and it's regards to commissioning, I think, rather than procurement. But we need, it's just about accessing information. That's certainly what I would read this, Ivor. But receiving the right information through a formal process, and it's the discussion's got to be gauged around about how we actually receive that information. What is the proper formal process? And it's is it 5 committees? Is it one committee focus on it, or is it just P&R? Where is it? And that's the. I mean, I agree with the principle of that. It's absolutely right. But the stickler point I've got, and Patsy has actually brought this point up, was that I believe it should be a focused when it comes to commissioning and procurement, and even potentially further as well, for that matter.
But that would, to me, suggest that there is one committee. So everything should be done through full council, because we're a board, we do the strategy's the part that's commissioning's at, rather than operational.
Committee of full council, maybe?
Don't think so.
Well, a service committee is a subcommittee of full council. It is, because you delegate down. They're all subcommittees of full council if you look at it that way.
But does accountability not come through this committee or audit and risk? Because if the commissioning that we have put in place is carried out, we should be able to request information back to ensure that commissioning process has been adhered to. Now, would it be done through this committee or audit and risk?
No, it's not for audit and risk. It
No,
all
something
goes to a
that's going to
service
service
committee, and then if the service committee have concerns, the service committee have the role to scrutinise and monitor, and if they have a concern about something that's happening, then that service committee can send something to audit and risk.
So therefore, if you go down to that level, if you set a strategic commission at a single committee, then you send it to the service committee. Well, actually, we didn't agree with that strategic commission, because that isn't what we wanted to deliver. Because the service committee has different ideas as the people who sit in the.
Probably the other way around, I think, though. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with process. The service committee sends it to the commissioners committee, so to speak, or the procurement committee, whatever you want to call it. I think that would be a process that could be adhered to and would be right, because it's had the stamp of approval, you could say, from that service committee. But
Can I perhaps perhaps.
I always think a question of sport of this thing, there are more questions than answers. I don't know why.
I agree.
I mean, objective 7 was about whether this committee felt there was a need for guidelines to have clarity, rigour, structure. That was the objective you set yourselves when deciding between in-house or outsourcing. What it didn't say was whether that was a decision of members or officers. It was asking about transparency, I think, about that decision making, so that it was evident to members and the officers had a process to follow. Members' involvement in that or otherwise would depend on the nature and the extent of the procurement. If it's big enough, it would come in front of members under the standing orders. So I think probably the recommendation, and it is where we got to in the discussion in our seminar, but I think this is really, should there be guidelines, and should they be developed, and those would be developed in line with the other elements of standing orders, procurement standing orders. I think the recommendation as it stands just now was kind of where the debate had been at the seminar, but it probably doesn't answer the objective in itself, and it's probably less to do with committee and it's more to do with transparency of decision making.
But that doesn't let us escape from the fact we need to have continuity and an oversight of what's happening within all the various departments, and ensuring that the commissioning process is being adhered to. No?
If it's transparent, then surely the answer to your question should be yes.
How do you ensure it's transparent?
Following guidelines.
Your guidelines could have something in them about how you're going to share the information.
Once you've got your guidelines, then each committee will be able to scrutinise its commissions and make sure that the process has been followed properly. So I think.
I think when you look at the recommendation itself, Ken, it's there, it's just how it's implemented. I mean, I think I would agree with the actual recommendation, it's just how it's implemented thereafter. And maybe that's a wider discussion at a later point, maybe even at full council for that matter, because this is where this is going at the end of the day. It's how that's further, but I mean, I've nothing against the actual recommendation that's in there itself. It is about elected members need to receive the right information through a formal process as part of the new framework, referred to in recommendation 12. So, I mean, I think that's right. We're arguing about the semantics, about, you could say, and how that's delivered. But I agree with the holistic part of that.
Chair, is the recommendation of this committee then that guidelines should be prepared?
Yeah.
Or along those lines, and the secondary part of that is that elected members need to, as part of that framework, receive the right information. So I suppose it's what's the recommendation and the action that you'd expect to see from it. So we need to, I suppose, you've considered it, you do or you don't think that there should be some sort of guidelines there, and as part of that then members, your recommendation perhaps or otherwise, need to receive as part of that set of guidelines the right information through committee and a formal process as part of these guidelines, and that would give officers at least clarity about that as being a key element of those guidelines if you wish them developed.
But we're not being specific to what committee at that point now. I prefer it that way then. At least we can have the debate at full council, whether it's service, corporate or a kind of standalone committee at that point.
I think that'd be a matter for full council and the scheme. It's it's apart from this, it's a scheme that takes precedence over anything.
Surely objective 7 is a process question rather than a committee one as to where it's delivered. What we should be able to say is, if you follow route A through the commissioning and procurement process, and at the end of it you come out and it says that when you're delivering that service, in-house shows you that would be where it's delivered better. You have set a process in place for that, or outsourcing is where you need to go to tender. That process, members should know why you've got to the end, why you've decided that. That's what we need to be told, rather than, you know, well, away you go, come back and tell us what you did. But so the members know that there is a process followed to actually achieve, whether it's in-house or outsourced. That's what that should have, and whether that's when we get the information that through following our guidelines or our process, we got to the end question or the end answer.
Can I just say, Chair, if you look at page 31, which gives us the evidence and then analysis and objective 7, it doesn't really relate to what we put in here, really. We've had advice from our senior legal manager, and then what the analysis is quite interesting at the end of it, and I didn't really see where what's put in here at on page 24 actually reflects what was discussed and what was suggested when we got evidence. I mean, that's pretty straightforward, what's in there. I presume that's from Rona or one of her team. And, what the outcomes must be is that, it's affordable budget and with the end user in mind. Well, that's common sense, for goodness sake, really. And that the existing standing orders and guidance are there already. So I don't really know. What that's doing. I don't know what that's adding to the party, the recommendation at 13, if I'm being honest.
Well, if you take the last paragraph, where we're existing standing orders and guidance, including thresholds, provide the right framework, etc. That means we get the right information at the right time to allow us to make open and transparent decisions. Mm-hmm. And that's reflected in.
You think 13 is right? Well, if it's
meant to be reflected.
Okay.
It's maybe the work thing we could tidy up.
Yep, I agree.
Would members be more comfortable if we lifted that word down?
I think that would be better, actually. I think that would be better, maybe. Mm-hmm. That might be the way forward, yeah.
That's a shame.
Are we agreeing that one? Right. And objective 8, reviewing the content of a procurement strategy as it relates to commissioning. Sort of reflect, I think
that's
procurement strategy with the contract managers. So this will allow we'll be able to feed into the procurement strategy these recommendations to deliver it. So happy with 14? Yeah. Right. We've considered the updated draft report, and we've agreed that the final commissioning review report is presented to full council as amended at paragraph 3.5.
Just means you're presenting it.
Well, the detail of paragraph 3.5 with the amendments that we've made.
Yeah.
Maybe so I'm clear on what we've agreed them amendments. I'm not going to ask to go through everyone what we've amended. But I'm thinking back to, again, this time last year, and it was before, it was the back end of 14, I think it was, and we thought that a forum or a committee was better for procurement. What are we feeling in regards to this? And because this is final recommendation, I don't think that's the view that's been picked up here, is it? We're saying it's more of a P&R is what we're looking at here, or is it just so I'm aware? Because my view is still a standalone committee, and this is the time for me to be able to put that forward. I think it'd be a better focus, but it should be included. The commissioning would be part of the same committee. That procurement we referred last year would be part of that same. To have that final oversight, more at the point, rather than maybe the service committees could certainly look at that and refer to it, but you'd have the final oversight when it came in that level of expertise of the membership of the council would sit on that committee, Chairman. I'd just like to hear what other folk are thinking as well.
Jill?
I think we have to say in our recommendations that commissioning needs to be placed in the same place as procurement. So if we're having a subcommittee for procurement, commissioning needs to be part of that subcommittee. If we're having a standalone committee, it needs to be part of that. But if I'm right in what everybody was saying today, the agreement at the Scheme of Delegations Committee was to have a subcommittee.
No, it's to have an item at the back of policy and resources somewhere.
It was, the overview had to come through policy and resources.
Yeah, well, in that case, then that must be where the commissioning has to sit as well. We can't have one sitting in one place and one sitting somewhere else. They've got to be together.
But the only thing I'm saying, I think as a committee we should be taking a consistent approach on the decision we made last year, and it should be a forum stroke committee, depending on the decision made further. Like I said, I disagree in regards to the decision made last week. I'll bring that up again at full council in regards to that. But I think we should be taking the same approach. Why would we take a different approach with commissioning or contracts management for that, with procurement, kind of as we move on and look at other things?
Can I just check with members, is that in relation, Councillor Dykes, to oversight of commissioning across the council rather than individual commissions that might be being developed, for instance, in social work?
I think it's oversight across the whole council. Yes.
So I think we just need to be clear about that, because that commissioning and commissions are still part of individual service committees in terms of their responsibilities and their delegations. So I think what you're describing, but I think we need to get the words right with members, is that this is to do with the oversight of the strategic framework for commissioning. So I'll put that, I think it's just so that there's not that confusion if you are making that recommendation for council.
So, I mean, I'll certainly be approaching before full council anyways, Lorna, in regards to my views on this.
Do we add that in?
Yeah.
A final point, Chair, is there's been some fundamental changes, I think, to the debate from the seminar to this draft to a final. And I think it was suggested early on, but I think we would feel more comfortable as officers, your report, if we circulate it round all members of this committee, just for final agreement of the wording, so that it reflects your debate.
Thanks for allowing as much debate on that subject, Chairman.
No problem. Right, item 6, scrutiny review, phase 2 commissioning actions and final steps, report by Director Services. This report sets out the final steps in the review. Do members have any comments? Two things, information awaited that we haven't got yet, but other than that, are we happy with the next steps proposed?
Ready?
Thank you for that. Item 7, scrutiny reviews, feedback from locality visits. If we take these in order, we've Dumfries had Gretna and Annan. Can we look at appendix 1, which is the Dumfries? Those members present, is there anything that you feel needs to be added to that feedback?
That was right.
Richard?
No.
Andrew?
The only thing I was a wee bit uncomfortable with, and that was when we were interviewing young people, it was very much the Oasis and the youth strategy group and whatever it is that worked out is there. And I'm not sure that we really encapsulated the views of young people throughout our whole region. That's my concern.
I mean, the
There
focus
were
was on the
Dumfries.
service that
I
we're
know it was.
delivering there, so I guess the other locality visits, perhaps some of them have picked up.
Well, we did, in fairness, we did a wee bit in
You know, it
Dalbeattie.
was,
Yeah. don't know, I felt that we just didn't get a large enough audience. In fact, how many did we have? Was there 5 youngsters?
There's 5.
Hardly representative of Dumfries, is it? How many youngsters do we educate in Dumfries? I would have thought.
There was 5,500 at secondary schools, so
I think
about that.
I
Well,
mean,
I'm trying
I
to
think that the model that we've gone for in the locality visits was just to have some small discussions with individual groups and staff and other people. So I think when you put the body of evidence together, I hope you'll be reassured that you've got different views from different groups, and when it all comes together at the end, you've got sufficient evidence to inform your recommendations.
I know, but also within Dumfries you have, whether we like it or not, there are sort of social structures that take place, and it would have been good to have gone to Max High and maybe gone to St Joseph or the Academy or something like that, and got comparisons.
Well, you
Or-
did Dalbeattie, Dalbeattie High School.
But that was looking at it from a rural
Aye.
sort of perspective, whereas we're talking about a town perspective.
So there was one of the members at the was Clarencefield, so it was a rural view of how to get into the
Yeah.
Dumfries.
Not just a concern I wanted to flag, but I just felt it wasn't representative of young people. At least I didn't feel it was representative of young people in Dumfries.
Chair, I mean, the purpose of the visits was around the 3 programmes that you've chosen, which was access to service and buildings,
Yeah.
public involvement, I think, and town and village improvements, probably the first 2. It might be an area, as you come to that in the agenda, where you want to gather more evidence in particular areas with young people or otherwise. So it wasn't a kind of one and done, it was just to try and start to give you some evidence of where you might want to go. So if that's helpful to you, maybe later in the agenda.
Is there any questions, comments from the members who weren't able to attend the Dumfries visit?
Can I actually just add one other thing, and that is I felt the supporting officers at the events that I have been able to attend were very good. I have to commend you. I thought you teased out some
Dragged out.
some answers from people who maybe could have been difficult.
Thank you.
Even in the face of adversity, when one of the councillors asked about flood issues in White Sands.
So, yeah, well done.
Thank you.
All right, and then we've got Appendix 2, which was the Anne and Gretna visit, and I noticed Ian, you were the only attendee.
Attendee? No, Liz was there enough. Let's help. I mean,
Have you anything to add to the papers?
Gretna, someone I picked up in a later report on page 44. I wasn't there, the Director of Communities Preparatory Workshop, he was there obviously, but some of the comments in there certainly conflicted with what we picked up at the Gretna Community Customer Services and Libraries Integration service that they supply. I think it's been well documented. Liz has got it right in regards to she documented what was picked up. They were very honest, I think. I felt with their opinions. They've been recorded there. Annan, with a good visit round about Annan, the facelift scheme for the shopfront improvements in Annan, went around the most of them, right back round. But the only bit I would say there was a lack of information on was the Riverside, the Annan River Gateway project, regeneration project. I was specific about figures in regards to that. I felt that we hadn't achieved best value. I made that clear before I went there, and there was no figures. I think it was a budget or just over 140k there, and from my personal view, there was about half of that worth of value. I've got some stats to actually back that up, that we only got half the amount of money value for what actually the money that was allocated to that. I don't think all the money was actually spent there, and that I wanted to tease that out. So that was the only bit that was missing for me. We picked up on the stuff, but I would like to have got a wee bit more teased out in regards to that Annan River Gateway.
I mean, we can certainly
regeneration
follow
project.
that out with the review. I guess the focus of the review being the shopfront improvement scheme. But I'm sure Jason Sayers, who was also there, will be happy to pick that up out
Well, it
with
was-
the review.
Well, the only thing, I mean, I've been through that
Uh-huh.
cycle already, and that's why I raised it here now specifically. When I said let's involve Anne, and I said specifically for that project, but because we're looking at a wider remit, we picked up on the facelift scheme as well, or the shop fronts. But I felt that was, for me, was a particular issue, that we haven't demonstrated best value. The others, I think we've demonstrated good value. We've match funded different projects, so we've seen great benefits from it. But that one there in particular, I thought a few questions still hanging over that, and it was myself that raised that, previous committees to be looked at, and that's specifically the points I wanted to raise. But the questions weren't answered. Jason did the best job he could on the day, because he wasn't prepared
Not
for it,
his
certainly.
particular
But
focus.
but no, I still think I would like as a committee to actually see them out in the public, actually what happened, how much money was spent, the value compared to what was actually delivered on the ground, because I think it was poor.
Andrew?
Can I also come and support you in that one 100%, Ian? When we were at the Wigton, once again, it was the shop fronts where we're getting value. I mean, after 1 year or 2 years of it having been done, it was looking pretty rough, to say the least. And I think there's a big question mark over whether
Monitoring and.
Yes.
So I wondered if some of those were older than 1 or 2 years, and they've just brought back from previous schemes. 'Cause I don't know if it was,
Well, we met with the shop owners and they told us.
you know, the one that I wondered where it was, and we eventually found out it was the sort of, oh well, I've been here so long, I can't remember it being done. That was one up, is it the north end of the street or south? I can't remember. Was it the top end? I think you came and joined us. No,
I did just about there.
aye, so, and it was quite evident that either it was a long time ago or never been touched. And that was, like you say, you know, monitoring of it. Was it done? When was it done? There might have been new windows and everything in it. It didn't look like there were new windows.
And I think when you got the feedback from the Wigton one, that is one issue that we picked up. So when we come to the stage of this review of presenting that evidence and the analysis, and you start to think about your recommendations, I think that is emerging as an area that you'll perhaps want to comment on and make some recommendations around.
Yeah, no, that's good.
The members that weren't able to attend, other members, anyone have any questions or points they'd like to raise?
It's quite interesting that in both things about the libraries that the comment has been that they're for older people. Well, obviously, the Dumfries, you know, when you're with the young people in the Oasis thing, 'cause that's what they said about libraries, they're not young people friendly. And also in this one, you know, it tends to be older people who come in, and I know they're coming into the customer service centre at the same time, but I just wonder if we're missing a trick a bit with our libraries as an image thing, and I don't know what you do about it, but I would think that's probably a fairly across the region perception that libraries are for older people.
Down to the fact now, modern technology determines that you use a Kindle tablet to read a book, whereas
Other brands are available.
Again, because you mentioned Kindle.
whereby there is a feeling that there aren't that many silver surfers out there as they're deemed, which I think there are, and that the older generation are moving towards more modern technology. So, and finding it easy to use, whereby, you know, it's aimed at you go and get a book. I think the people who are used to reading a book are of an older generation, whereas someone nowadays, it's, you know, if I can't go from one story on to something else and find out who's just text me or I've got an Instagram message and the same thing, that seems to be the sort of younger person's way. Watching my kids anyway, they jump between 2 or 3
So
times.
our libraries are doomed then, are they?
I don't, well, I very
If you
seldom
haven't
see
got that
my kids
generation
picking up a
coming
book.
in, you know, they're not going to suddenly take it up when they're
They will read
in their 20s.
think stories and information off a tablet before they would go and look up an encyclopedia.
But I can understand that, but maybe we're not offering something interesting in the libraries. I don't know, it's just a thought. I don't know what you can do, because everybody has their own tablet or whatever it is. They don't need, and we wouldn't be doing that, that would be too expensive.
You know, and you can get your stories online, whereby you don't need to go and borrow a book now.
Pretty depressing, really, isn't it? It's coming about.
Another interesting one is the public involvement within Dumfries. It's young people rarely know who their councillors are. In Dalbeattie, it's the elderly that didn't know who their councillors were. Does anybody know who their councillors are? Who are you?
I'm your councillor.
What are we going to do to address that? Because we did have discussion around how we actually make ourselves more visible to the public, because we turn up at community council meetings, we have our secretaries, we have our constituency issues that we deal with, but really in real terms that's not getting out and around all of the constituents within your ward.
But do you have to do that? I mean,
You don't have to do it.
no, but is that what people are wanting? I mean, do they?
Well, yes, in Dalbeattie they certainly did.
I think in Dalbeattie they certainly said that they would like to see councillors at assemblies, but not in a sort of formal way.
What do you mean by assemblies at school?
School
Yeah.
academies, yeah.
Well, that presumably is up to the school to ask. I mean, have you ever been asked to go to assembly? I've never been asked to go to assembly at Kakubri Academy
But
or
then
primary school.
education comes under the council, so surely we should be looking at putting in place some kind of strategy whereby, you know, all our schools know this and try and include councillors. I mean, I'm sure you've all been involved in going into school and doing political, you know, speeches to them and such like.
For ages,
So,
but
you know,
I've
'cause
done it, yeah.
But that's not really open to anybody and everybody. And I think that we need to have a forum whereby you can go into a school and all of the elected members for that ward are present and the pupils can put forward their concerns and their issues and get to understand what's actually happening.
I mean,
How does that help them know who their local councillor is? Because if I have kids in my ward go to St Joe's, that's not in my ward. So the kid wouldn't know who the local representative was. Same way if I go to Marchmount, which is in my ward, half the kids come from out with my ward. They wouldn't know who their local councillor is. So unless you say, right, if you stay in Nick, you go to St Joe's. If you stay in Locker, you go to Marchmount.
But we shouldn't use that as an excuse not to try and find a way of engaging
and
with
I
them.
think, yeah, one of the objectives of your public involvement scrutiny review is to look at the role of elected members in public involvement. So these very issues will come through that review, and there will be perhaps some recommendations about things you could and should do to make sure that people know how they can contact you, who you are, so that they can improve their involvement.
Because certainly there are discussions going on in the council at the moment, aren't there, about having, instead of
The
having
ward
area
forums,
committee
about
meetings, we're having ward
forums and things.
things. That might help to address the situation.
You say half the kids in Wallace Hall Academy come from the priest.
Yeah, by God, they know who I am.
No, I can say from the walk round Annan, I think I did say to the team, I said every second person in Carruthers was going hello, waving at vans. I said so there was certainly no issue in Annan in terms of your profile.
With the youth lot, we used to have the youth strategy executive group. Now I know that's just another, it's too, but it was across the region. So you had kids coming from Stranraer, and there was councillors on it, and it was quite. And I don't know why that got stopped.
Back up again, youth platform has took that over.
Who goes to that? Who's on that?
I know Craig Peacock and myself, Randy and Estile's on it, so it's each area committee has its own allocation. So Stuart should have allocated to
I
that.
don't know who. Earth is on it. We never get any reports back on what it does or anything.
No, that's true enough.
It was called the Youth Strategy Executive Group, but what's it called now?
Youth platform now, is it?
Youth Platform.
There's 4, I think, districts and 1 regional.
Do you know, I don't know that we've got one in this church.
I don't,
Well, it's
neither,
Castle
I'm
Douglas
chairing
says
it.
it's meeting.
I've never
Yeah.
heard it.
I agree, because I'm used to sitting it with yourself. And,
Yes.
and so was,
It was quite scary, hairy stuff, actually.
you did it, yeah.
Actually, they were quite dynamic. They were
Yeah.
a bit odd.
It used
some
to
of
be
them,
chaired by a monkey, was it? Or something. They used to bring.
No.
I can remember at full council they brought in a monkey. It was like a wee toy monkey, and they sat, and I can't remember what it was, but they, he had to be
Service
there.
committees on the council there, sorry.
That's
He had to be there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That was a chap from
Anyway.
Stranraer. Anyway,
Not saying
I
the
don't
person,
think we've got
but they
any
had a
thing.
toy that they sat on.
Monkey.
I'm sure it was a monkey.
That does sound like Ian Donaldson for those of us who remember him.
That's right, he was
they call it pupil platform.
Youth
Youth
platform.
Youth platform.
Youth platform.
Aye,
But
I
they
must
did
admit-
a meeting last week in Castle Douglas, so
Well,
it's
one of the best
settle, aye.
meetings I can remember going to was at the Oasis Centre, and it was the young people, and they had a question panel night for the councillors, and that was good fun. You know, I remember everybody saying, "Oh, you know, it was a question. Do you think 16-year-olds should get the vote?"
No.
And I was the only one who disagreed with them, and I said, "Well, I was 18 when I got the vote, and I've voted every time since, and it's never stopped me voting." And the wee boy came up to me afterwards and says, "You know something, I don't agree with you, but at least you didn't play to the audience." So that was their perception of that question, that, you know, politicians go up there to actually look at the audience and say, right, how am I going to achieve the outcome that I want, which is for people to support me. He actually thought, now whether it was me just holding the proverbial to the fire or not, I don't know, but just thought I'd say that different. And he actually found that quite refreshing.
I know Andy and Estelle, in Andy and Estelle, I think we've been invited, Richard, haven't we, to the school, but as a committee, but the 4 local members, Diana, have to take the stage. Do that sometimes, so there is different formats in which to engage in place.
Right.
And tomatoes at
I
hand.
think we've went slightly off.
Off piece, sorry, yes. You did ask.
We have the evidence and information collected at the locality visit to Dumfries. Are we happy to add that to our evidence, and the same with the evidence for Anna?
I don't know if it's been captured in regards to a couple of things that I said about that. I mean, I think happy to, but I think the Anna River Gateway project specifically was, I would like to see more information in regards to that when it comes to figures and stats. I think it was page 44, I've got it written down somewhere, but I wasn't at a preparatory workshop where Derek was there, and he'd made comments that conflict with what we actually picked up at Gretna. I can maybe give you that later on, please, if you want, but as long as we've got that noted, I'd be more than happy with the recommendation.
Write it down. Right, move on to item 8. Access to services and use of public buildings, feedback on customer services and asset transfer. This report presents evidence gathered from officers at the last preparatory workshop. Perhaps firstly I could ask the members who were present at the workshop event if there are any amendments or additions you consider appropriate at this time to the note. I think it was quite. It reflects roughly. Patsy, have you anything that you want?
No, I think that was just the gist of what we had, which was good.
Then any other members who attend on the day? Yeah.
That particular point, just when I've got it noted here, page 44, it says it's the second paragraph down. The community facilities are available for individual discussions, and staff are encouraged to take people through to these interview rooms when a longer discussion is required. That and the one below it, there was difficulties there in Gretna, and that's the particular point I was talking about. There was a difficulty there that I think
Case if it's a single person
resource really, wasn't it?
facility, then they can't leave the reception desk to take somebody into an interview room. So it has to be an appointment system, or the customer has to have their discussion at the reception desk. And I think that was the point that they were making. So that's clearly in page 44, that's the position perhaps for larger offices.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think it's something that we would want to look into.
Because that was raised, how do you identify people at Wigton when we were down visiting there, coming forward, how do you know? And I think a lot of it was from when they started the staff to where they are now, they can sort of pick up by the sort of body language of people coming in, which possibly isn't the best way, because somebody's body language is different than others, so could there be a system put in to fast track them?
It was similar to Gretton as well, but I think that it was fact there was one person quite often, and that was it. Interview rooms, even the infrastructure was there, but they couldn't get anybody else just to, or so you have to wait till I serve everybody else, then you're leaving an unmanned desk.
Yeah.
So it was kind of it was inappropriate.
Yeah.
But I know we've picked up on it anyways. Yeah.
After that. At the workshop. If we go to recommendations, so the summary of evidence, in a briefing discussion with the director as detailed. So the summary of evidence information with the presentation discussion by the service manager change programme, community facilities and integration. Appendix 2. Patch, have you anything you wish to add to
No,
that?
I just brought it up at CCS the other day, because we're talking about asset transfers and ward, what we called ward workers, and all of that. And I don't know if it's something for scrutiny to do or whether we just wait and see, but I do have concerns that for these asset transfers, which are all the buzzword at the moment, everybody's doing it, that if they don't get the money that they're expecting in order to run them, where do they come back to? And the council is leaving itself open to having virtually given something away and then having to pick up the pieces in a later date, perhaps, if it doesn't fulfil what the community want, or the group that's taken it on, as happens in all communities, is no longer there, and there isn't somebody else that wants to do it. That's always the worry. And it's not that we discussed it here, but I just do think it is a good example of asset transfers for less than best consideration, and they're totally relying on other funding, and if they don't get it, we're going to get them back again, but they're going to be in a worse condition they were when we gave them away. And we didn't ask that question in this, and we should have done.
We maybe send that written question to Karen, wasn't it, that came and spoke to us, Karen Brown?
She was there. I think, Lucy, you were there at that committee, weren't you? And I don't know if I mentioned it, but I don't know that it's gone anywhere, well, I think they were going to put it into the new agreements, that there was going to be something, they were going to look at it, but because there's more and more of them, and it's going to happen across and it's going to be in every community, there's going to be something going to be asset transferred, and it's fine as long as there's a community there to look after it, but when that disappears, which it can happen, then who's responsible? And
I think that the very last point in Karen's evidence about the disposal clauses, I guess that's where they're trying to kind of pick up that point, that as part of the process, that you're checking to see if there's a sustainability.
That's exactly, sorry, I missed
happen,
that bit.
But I think your point is maybe about the robustness of disposal clauses, and
well, you see,
certainly as part of the approach.
What the example I gave there was that at Audit and Risk the other day, we had a thing about 3G pitches, and the ones were given over to various clubs, and within their agreement is they have to have a sinking fund that they put into every year, so that when the time comes, which is they put, say, 10 years, they have got money to replace the surface, and it doesn't come back to the council to do it. And I don't know whether we can put anything in to make sure, but they're not making money. The communities are buying it for the nursery school or people to have a meeting place, or, you know, and it's not a money-making concern, perhaps to the same extent that football clubs pay to play on a 3G pitch or something.
But
I do think we're setting up a bit of a nightmare for the future.
it's based on the fact that a lot of this was to reduce costs to the council, and when 2 years if they don't work, and it comes back to the council, we don't have a revenue stream to
We
actually
absolutely
keep
don't.
them open, so.
It is mentioned. Sorry, I missed that bit at the very bottom. And so it is there. I just don't know what emphasis we.
Kind of robustness of it.
Well, I just wonder, because I think it's it's rather depressing, because you think everything's going to fail, but of course it won't, because a lot of them will keep going, but there will be the odd one. And you know, how irritating is it to see a building in the middle of a community that's not being used and falling down?
Discussion at a seminar we had in regards to clawback arrangements, 5-10 years. So if for some reason we even felt that they weren't adhering to the conditions of sale.
And was there something in that, was that going to be put in, or is that in already?
It would have to be something. No, that's something. It could be a standard condition that we put in. Quite often it is applied, and it's usually 5 or 10 years.
Right, okay.
Let's say if they've never adhered, we'd have a right to buy back, or kind of at the same value as what we sold it at. So if it's at €0 or £1,
Yes.
we get it back for the same. So that was there. But ultimately, it goes back to that few bit better assets that Ivor's alluded to.
Absolutely.
We
I
want
get-
to
I
see them
get- I get-
successful.
I
Aye.
absolutely get all of that, and I'm
Yeah,
all
and
in favour of it.
I think the Community Empowerment Act as well. Now it's been
Well, that's
enacted.
what it came under,
aye.
because now if a community want to have that piece of ground or that building, they have an absolute right to do it. That's where it came under. So even if they don't have a robust business plan, they can say that they kind of want to have it. And we need to get it stronger, so that it works better.
We spoke about this at the Wigton Area Committee yesterday too, because we've got 2 halls, Dunmore and Port Patrick. It's going over to and we're looking at putting something in the contract too.
Yes.
Exactly for the reasons it was
Yes.
brought up to yesterday at the meeting, that was a concern, what would happen if they weren't able to upkeep.
Yes.
Would
So
it come back to
it's obviously, we are aware of it, so that's good. Anyway, sorry, that was just
good
my
idea what you said.
And any of the members who weren't at the workshop, have they any points they would like to raise under Appendix 2? So we've considered the summary of evidence with regard to the community facilities and integration, detailed in Appendix 2, and are we happy that this should be added to the evidence gathered for the access to services and use of public buildings scrutiny review?
Yeah.
Take silence as agreement.
Sorry.
Right with that. Move on to item 9, access to services and use of public buildings, actions and next steps. This report sets out the next steps in the review. Do members have any comments?
the school lets policy. How are we getting on with that?
Which one?
Well, just generally, it's in progress. We had a preparatory workshop on the 21st of May.
Yeah.
And I don't know, when we do these, do we follow it up and see if anything's got better because of our workshop or
You
not?
received evidence which
Yes.
will be compiled part of your report once you've completed all your activities.
Yes. So how long before we see if that is improving? For instance, the school lets.
Well, I suppose that'll be for Education Committee for the ongoing arrangement just now. You've looked at what the policy is as part of your review.
Mm-hmm.
And that will just form part of your evidence when you're looking at your review objectives and what evidence you've got for them. In terms of monitoring the current policy, I presume that will be something that the Education Committee...
We have nothing more to do with it once we've...
You've taken evidence about what we've currently got in place,
Yes.
so that will form part of your body of evidence.
Okay.
Chair, I think Councillor Gilroy's potentially asking, we want to look at the effectiveness of that policy as part of our review and to consider recommendations from that. And it was last May that we received the evidence on the policy. So is there some way we may have to come back to you on how, but
I think at the
more
time, I think,
evidence about
yeah.
how it's actually working in practice. But the Scrutiny Committee
Yeah.
can gather that, notwithstanding the oversight of the Education Committee.
I think at the time that the focus was about the alignment of the school lakes policy with other policies that we've got in place about how community use council facilities. So
But it
it
was,
was more about
but it was
making
also
sure they
primarily
were
about the
complementary
new schools, which were, you know, when they were being
developed.
hunted out and developed, if you like. One of the things was that, you know, there were communities, for the use of the community, and I don't know how well that is happening, and I don't know that Education Committee are all that bothered, if I'm being honest, because they're looking at it from an education point of view. They're not looking at it from a community point of view.
The evidence.
And we meant to have a certain number of hours that we were allowed to use it for, and we have no idea whether those hours. I have no idea whether those hours are being used in Kakubra Primary School, for instance.
Okay. We can get you an update on that.
Just think it's quite interesting if we look at it, you know, and it wasn't from an educational point of view; it was from a community point of view.
We could add that to the basket actions.
Yeah, but they use it for whatever they need, which is fine. But it's whether the rest of the community understand that they're there to be accessed, and I don't think they do.
I think there are concerns with community group users of educational facilities with regard to possible increase in charges, but that was just a committee I sit on where someone suggested that there might be an increase in cost. So
but, you know, well, with the likes of the new schools, we were given a certain number of hours that were to be available. So that
would
go up?
That shouldn't affect, because those hours are part of the contract that we pay.
Yes.
But I think it's to do with janitorial cover and stuff like that.
I think you're right.
Someone has to come out and open up, close the school at night. Right.
Can I just ask it on page 54, it says in progress made the top set of bullet points on the very right hand side, sessions planned for next preparatory works on the 25th of April. What are they? Are they in front of us? Can I see them or not? Do we have any indication what they are? The prepared session plan for the next
Diversity groups are coming in.
Is that it? I see that's to the side. Just when I seen them all above. Is that what we've got coming in? And is that the last? And is that?
I understand that's going to be a single session with round table. Consideration was given to the fact that it is getting near the Scottish election and members may wish to be elsewhere, so it was just going to be a single issue workshop that day, just to try and make sure we can get good session, and then if members need to be away somewhere else after, they can get on. With that, can we note the progress and actions taken to the access to services and review and agree the next steps as detailed in the appendix. Move on to item 10, feedback on public involvement strategies in other councils. This report provides some factual information on the public involvement strategies in the 5 other councils we agreed to look at. Evidence is that all councils are really at the development stage of this work, and that our council is in a similar position to other areas. Liz, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I don't think. I mean, I think you'll recognise some of these issues from, for example, our website and our activities, and clearly the Community and Customer Services Committee on Tuesday agreed a real kind of step change in how we're going to be doing our engagement and public involvement. So I think we're in a good place just now to be going forward into the future. But by looking at the 5 councils you'd identified that you wanted to look at, we are already doing quite similar things to them. There's pockets of good practice in some individual services, like North Ayrshire Council's housing services. I've got a super website and information, but it's I think we do similar things at the moment to these other councils.
Members, any points you'd like to raise?
It's just the one at Renfrew Council, which has public services panel. It has 3 or 4 surveys each year, and it's good feedback. I just wonder what they consider to be good feedback and
I
who they're
think
reaching. Is it
off
just
the top of my head, I think they were talking about getting a percentage of between 40 and 50% from this particular panel when they sent out a survey each time, which for a postal survey is a good response rate.
And
I can get some more detail
I just
on
wondered.
that.
I thought it
but
was quite
that's
interesting because
off the top
surveys
of my head.
are all very well, but it's quite difficult to get a good
representation.
Yes,
uh-huh.
yes. And I just wondered how they did it. If it.
And I think the point about that was they limit it quite to just 3 or 4 a year.
And it's on the website, or is it? They do the feedback on the website. So, but do they do the surveys? How do they do the surveys? Is it survey?
I think their postal surveys are on an online survey with some postal supplementary.
So when it's an online one and they're doing a survey, do they pick?
There's a particular panel of people who've said they're interested, similar to what we've had in the Public Partnership Forum. So it's a group of people that have expressed an interest in working with the council about their survey and their consultation activity.
So that's why you get
most of them complete it online, I think, but they do send out postal to
that's
some people who don't want to do it. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
There's no other points. Consider the summary of evidence.
Considered.
And are we happy to agree that this should be added to the evidence gathered to the public involvement scrutiny review? Agreed. Item 11, feedback on staff and community surveys for community participation and engagement. This report presents evidence gathered from officers at the last preparatory workshop. Perhaps first I could ask the members who were present at the workshop event if there are any other amendments or additions. There's nothing. Those who weren't present, are there any points they would like to raise?
Quite a lot of points there.
I think members on CCS have seen the evidence full surveys as part of the Empowering Communities review. Liz, you anything to add?
No, I don't think so. I think it's quite comprehensive there for us.
Happy to say that we've considered the summary of evidence and are happy to agree that this should be added to the evidence for the public involvement scrutiny review.
Great.
Item 12 is the actions and next steps. This sets out the next steps in the review. Members have any comments? Everybody's happy. Note the progress and actions taken for the public involvement scrutiny review and review and agree the next steps for the scrutiny review as set out in the appendix, and we're happy to agree the next steps.
Yep.
No, is it clear when it could possibly, the council visits? Am I correct? But is it clear when they are? After the election?
think-
This a note somewhere, I think. Have I got that? Right.
Yeah, your preparatory workshop you had suggested.
Right, item 13 is I've no further business, but Thank everyone's attendance for today. We have got a second full scrutiny review, so that is a good morning's work. Our visit to Biggar is planned for the 30th of March, and calendar invites will be issued very shortly. The next preparatory workshop will be on the 25th of April, and as I previously said, that will be for the one item with regard to the access and
And public involvement.
diversity groups. Yeah.
Which is,
And the next formal committee is on the 7th of June. So, Chris, I will see you at one or all of these.
The one for Biggar, are we coming through to here and then leaving from here, or?
I think it will depend what responses we get from yourselves.
that's-
If you've agreed your next steps for the reviews today,
Yeah.
so now that we've agreed that, we'll get the visit invite to Biggar out, and it depends who's coming from where, I think, probably.
Just if I was coming through from Stranraer.
Yes, I mean, I'm
that's-
sure
it
we
would-
would organise something, absolutely, to
Okay.
make sure if you're able. The dates, if the date's good for you, we'll absolutely make sure we get you.
I don't mind if John's at home, he can drive me there, but I wouldn't do
Well, actually, Melinda's coming, you Galloway, so I'm sure we can
Okay.
sort something out.
Right.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
yeah.